Happy holidays from your friends at Minuteman Media Network. Wait a minute, this house doesn't look very festive.
No, it doesn't. Thanks for pointing that out, Phil. But you know, there's a very good reason for that, and it's simply that the colonists didn't celebrate Christmas the way we do today. Back when Massachusetts Bay was founded in 1630, the Puritans wanted nothing to do with it. First of all, the date of Jesus' birth is not mentioned in the Bible, so therefore they figured God must not want us to celebrate it. And the other reason, it's a little strange, but the Christmas that they knew back in post-medieval England was anything but the peaceful holiday that we know today. It was a time of excessive drinking and excessive eating and what they called misrule, a lot of mischief and mayhem. So they wanted, of course, nothing to do with it. And that continues until we get to about the time of the American Revolution, when the ice starts to thaw just a little bit and people start to recognize Christmas. But what comes back? It's not the religious observances. It was all the other stuff, the drinking and the mischief. In fact, in places like Boston, you had groups of young laboring class men. They called themselves the Antics. And they would go around in gangs around the streets late at night at Christmas time, and they would demand entry into your home. And if you tried to keep them out, they'd pull the hardware off your door, smash your window, break your door down, and then they come in, and you have to give them food and drink and anything they wanted. In exchange, of course, they'd put on a little bit of a stupid play, and of course your children would be terrified and run upstairs and hide because they're using all sorts of body language. Could you imagine what that was like? So again, far from being a peaceful, tranquil holiday, Christmas in the 18th century was a time of mischief and vandalism and terror.
Wow. Well, when did things begin to change?
Well, as per usual, things began to change once you get into the early 19th century. So why don't we go?
Go? Go where?
But take hold of my robe, Ebenezer.
What?
Never mind, you're impossible. Let's just go.
How did you do that?
Holiday magic, Phil.
Where are we?
We're at the Wayside home of authors in what was Nathaniel Hawthorne's and later Harriet Lothrop's library. And it's actually fitting that we're standing here surrounded by books because literature actually plays a big part in the next part of our story. So when we left off, Christmas in the late 18th century was a time of rowdiness and excessive drunkenness and people breaking into houses and terrorizing children. And it was still like that in the early 1800s. But there was a big push among, the more well-to-do people in New England and New York to tame or domesticate the holiday. And they really weren't having too much luck until Washington Irving published his sketchbook. Now, this is the same series of stories where you get Rip Van Winkle and, of course, The Legend of Sleepy Hollow. But also within the sketchbook, there were a series of essays about an old-fashioned English Christmas. And so he kind of polishes up a bunch of ideas that were floating out there and packages them and sells them to an American market. So now we have things like family gathered around a crackling fire on Christmas Eve, enjoying a sumptuous meal and playing games and going to church on Christmas Day, things that we would more recognize as a traditional Christmas. And then a couple years after that, Clement Clark Moore published A Visit from St. Nicholas, or as we may know it, The Night Before Christmas. So now we have St. Nicholas, Santa Claus, flying around on a sleigh pulled by reindeer and delivering presents to little children. So it becomes a holiday focused on the family and giving presents to children. So much better than terrorizing them with drunken street mobs. But then in the 1840s, Charles Dickens publishes A Christmas Carol. So bringing back the idea of the Christmas ghost story, further popularizing Christmas and really cementing it in people's minds as a time of charity and goodwill. And then, of course, when we think about Christmas, we think about the Christmas tree. That was a German tradition. We see it here in America, in Pennsylvania in the 1830s. But then, in the 1840s, the royal family, Queen Victoria and, of course, her German husband, Prince Albert, were shown in an illustrated magazine with a Christmas tree. And so it took off. And so now Christmas, as we know it today, is fully formed. But now in our society today, many people celebrate many different holidays this time of year. So whatever you celebrate, happy holidays from all of us. at Minuteman National Historical Park.
And Minuteman Media Network.